Hello and welcome. Hope you are having a great day today. We are going to be talking about Maundy Thursday today. Maundy Thursday is the Thursday right before the crucifixion that occurred on Friday. And there are several events that happen on Maundy Thursday. And some of the parts of these events you may be familiar with. So Jesus knew that his time was drawing near, his time to be crucified, and he was going to be gathering with all of the disciples in the upper room to celebrate Passover. So all of the disciples were planning to join him there. Now, during this time period, we know that people walked along roadways, and when they entered a home or a place after walking for miles and miles and miles, they always washed their feet. Well, for people who were not wealthy, when they entered their home, they washed their own feet. And for wealthy people, they actually had servants who would wash their feet for them. Well, when the disciples began to enter the upper room, Jesus was actually waiting for them there, and he insisted on washing their feet. And they were blown away. They were like, "What are you doing? We are not going to let you do this. You should not be washing our feet." But Jesus did that to symbolize a couple of things. He was symbolizing that he was being a servant. He had a servant's heart. And you can look at it also as what was getting ready to happen. The crucifixion was going to be cleansing or washing away our sin. So when you hear people talking about having a foot washing or something like that, this is actually where that originated from. So they enter the upper room and they begin having the Last Supper. And a lot of times I think we can be critical of the disciples and say, well, why didn't they realize what was happening, or how did they not know? But think of it this way. We have the Bible that we can refer to and read from. They didn't have this. All of this was happening in real time. And it was very hard for them to know what was exactly getting ready to happen. So Jesus, after he's washed their feet, they are having a meal together. And that is when the Last Supper occurs. Jesus actually breaks bread. He tells the disciples, "This is my body broken for you. Eat from it and remember of me." This is where communion started. Now, the disciples were confused when they heard this. They're like, "What do you mean this bread is your body?" But again, that's because they just did not know what was getting ready to happen. He also took a cup, poured wine in it, and told the disciples to drink from the cup, that was his blood that was going to be offered from them. So that's where the whole ceremony of communion originated. While they are eating and fellowshipping together, Jesus tells them that one of them will betray them. And they're like, "Wait a minute, one of us is going to betray you?" So they're like curious, who is it? Who is it? And we know that Judas is the one that ultimately betrayed him. And I was at a Bible study once and I joked because Jesus actually gives an indication that Judas was going to be the one, because when he gives Judas the bread, he's like, do what you need to do quickly. And I don't know if any of the disciples heard Jesus say that to Judas, but my guess is they weren't paying attention. I always joke and say that if the disciples had been women, we women would have been spending most of that time trying to figure out which one was going to be doing the betraying. So women may have figured it out, but none of the disciples realized it was Judas. It's also said that when he gives him the bread, that is when Satan entered Judas and prompted him to want to leave and go betray Jesus and tell the disciples where he would be. So after they're finished eating, Jesus leaves with a few of the disciples. They go to the Garden of Gethsemane. We know that there he actually was very distressed. We can read where it talks about how he cried tears of blood. And did you know that that is actually humanly possible, to be so distraught and distressed that you cry tears of blood? And he did this. He did this. And even though he dreaded what was coming, he prayed to God and he said, "Let your will be done." He let God know that he was distressed. He didn't hide that, which I think is important. We shouldn't hide from God when we're distressed. We can still show being distressed and accept God's will. So later on, I want to read what happens next. Jesus finds some of his disciples asleep. He had told them to wait for him, to watch. He was going to pray, and he comes back to find them asleep. And then Mark 14, verse 43 says, "And immediately, even as Jesus said this, Judas, one of the 12 disciples, arrived with a crowd of men armed with swords and clubs. They had been sent by the leading priest, the teachers of religious law, and the elders. The traitor, Judas, had given them a pre-arranged signal. 'You will know which one to arrest when I greet him with a kiss. Then you can take him away under guard.' As soon as they arrived, Judas walked up to Jesus. 'Rabbi,' he exclaimed, and he gave him the kiss." So, Cowboy thought that was an important part of Scripture. And that indeed is an important part of Scripture, because this is where we see Judas betraying Jesus and turning him over to the officials. So some things did happen later that evening, and they did take Jesus to begin to be questioned. They did take Jesus to begin to be questioned. So those are the events that happened on Maundy Thursday. Big day tomorrow. Big day tomorrow. So please join me tomorrow to find out exactly what happened on Good Friday. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.